Welcome back to Southeast Texas Weekly. I'm Kevin Steele. You thought it was tough already? Listen to this fight. We're going to have another debate that's going to be perhaps even more strident than the first. Joining us, Jeff Lewis, the Republican activist and Precinct 27 chairman. Good to see you, sir.
Always good to see you.
It's a fantastic honor to have you on our set. Godfrey Lewis returns to argue the progressive cause today.
He renamed me.
Speaking of which, immigration
we can't
policy,
get married in this state.
No.
the immigration policy in the state of Texas could change dramatically over the next 2 years, and I'll tell you why. HB 16 and 17, the new House bills, they've already been put forward by the legislator from Tomball. It's essentially a piece of legislation that would ponder a very familiar, very similar type measure to the one that Arizona passed in a controversial manner. Do you support it? Do you support what Arizona did? And should we have the same?
I think it's a good move. For one, when you have a law that is actually less strict than the national, the federal statute that the Democrats object to on the state level, is a question of state power.
You support requiring law enforcement personnel, requiring them to ask the status, the citizenship status of anyone they stop?
It's fair. I mean, we present ID all the time. I think we honestly need to go to more of a state ID system across the board. Now, I think when you get down to just traffic stops, if you have probable cause to question whether a person is a citizen, then that's a legitimate issue.
A lot of Republicans are behind this. We don't yet know who we haven't caucused, we haven't canvassed here. We don't know.
Jeff, when they arrest somebody, what are they going to do with them?
Well, we know a lot of Republicans are behind
this. That is another issue. I mean, how do we handle?
They're going to turn them over to ICE. You know what ICE is going to do with them? They're going to say, well, it's all right, you're really okay here.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and that's a problem.
Okay.
You think
well, that's not my.
At the end of the day,
that's not what I would prefer.
But you think that in a practical sense is what's going to happen?
I'm just telling you what's probably going to happen. Yes.
You think Republicans are going to be able to push this forward, pass it?
They might, but it's not right. We need to have a national law that works. And we don't have one.
We do have a national law. The problem is that it's not working because the Obama administration refuses to, for political reasons, to secure the borders.
You guys need to understand that the Spanish people are going to be the majority of the electorate here in about 2-3 years.
That's fine. I hope they vote Republican.
They're not going to vote Republican.
They're sure not going to vote Democrat the way you're headed.
The question here, Arizona became the source of ridicule for the nation for a while there. You'll remember all the stories that emerged around that issue. Governor Brewster and the state of Arizona was subject to ridicule for a good long time. Is that going to happen in Texas?
Absolutely not. And just to point out that Governor Brewer actually got the support of a lot of the southern states. I mean, a lot of people around the country agree. Almost 70% agree with the Arizona policy. It's the fringe left that thinks that this is a bad policy.
In a landslide for re-election.
Absolutely.
By the way, yes.
This problem is just like every other problem crying out for a solution. It needs to have our national legislators sit down and reason out things together.
Absolutely. We need to get away.
Doing that.
We need to get away from all the divisiveness that surrounds this issue. We're not racist because we want to secure the border, and you're not some kind of demagogue because you believe that people have a right to come here our country. Our country was founded on immigration. We're all immigrants, believe it or not, or at least descendants of immigrants to this American
continent. If you're not an American Indian, you're an immigrant.
Absolutely. So
I'm in favor of having a national ID card. Now, a lot of my Democratic brethren are not happy about that, but I would like to see that done. I would like to know where everybody lives and where they're working.
I'm afraid to do that on a national level.
On the question of divisiveness, and you bring up a good point, the Speaker of the House of the state of Texas, that whole issue is really beginning to be galvanized into the place where it's going to be a real bitter fight, it seems, in Austin. Is Speaker Strauss going to be able to hold his position? Jeff, we'll start with you.
That's a 50-50, and you pick them.
You can't tell. Who's the better choice?
I would really hate to.
From a Republican vantage, from a conservative vantage point, from your vantage point?
From a conservative vantage point, I think it's clear that Strauss is the less conservative of the two. He does come up more of a moderate standpoint and does work across. My objection is that the Speaker has given chairmanships to Democrats across the aisle, so I don't think that's the right thing to do.
Would you be prepared to go and publicly support Representative Chisholm from Pampa, who is a far
I'm not allowed to do that. So.
The problem
We
is
have to stay neutral here.
The problem
Gotcha.
is
Well
the
put.
Republicans are going in so many different directions. They're trying to find
Does
who
the
they want for
Texas
their
House need to
candidate.
be more conservative than it is?
No,
today?
I'm in favor of liberal.
Obviously.
Wait a second. You're not a conservative?
You're going to be
No.
you're
I'm
going to be a
mistaken.
centrist at best. Is it your view that it was Democrats, in fact, that helped Mr. Strauss to become Speaker in the first place?
Probably.
Because that's the argument now.
They did contribute. I'm sure they did.
And that would
Because he was a
seemingly
man
make
that
the
would-
House a more moderate body.
Well, he was a man that would work with them. We need people that will work with each other. We're really lacking people like that today.
And Chisholm, you're saying, would not be willing to work
I'm
with
afraid
Democrats?
he's a little bit too much on the outside.
You think so?
He's a little bit too
what
much
about
like me,
Leo
is that what
Berman?
you're saying?
Yeah.
What about Representative Berman and Tyler? Leo Berman.
Not as bad as Chisholm, but not as good as Strauss.
Politics. Huckabee says, the former Arkansas governor says he's not ruling out a run for the presidency. Good idea, bad idea?
We're not going to see anyone really declare until next January or February, probably.
Yeah, it's an
But
all-open thing.
What I think it's pretty obvious. He's along with him and Romney. They're pretty much at the top of the tier for the nomination in 12. And personally, I think he'd be a good choice if he does get it.
The White House keeps talking about we would rather have a great one term than to have two mediocre terms. What does this language mean? Are we going to see President Obama not run for re-election?
No, I don't think so. I think he'll run.
He will
I hope
run,
he
in your
wins.
view.
But we're going to have to do some good between now and then, really. I mean, we're going to have to concentrate on getting jobs for people, getting the deficit down. We only have a deficit problem because there's no income taxes coming in. That's the only reason. If you put people back to work, the deficit would disappear. You could pay it off pretty quickly. But we have to get people back to work.
You know what?
How do the Republicans in the House get people back to work? Do you believe,
good question.
for
What-
example,
what's the best thing they
Congressman
could do?
It is a
Ryan
great
Grant's-
question because you guys haven't figured it out yet.
What do you
Yeah.
think needs to happen for Congressman Ryan's plan to, be passed and or get some people back to work?
First thing, 70% of the jobs in this country are founded by small businesses.
Right.
They are taxed at the marginal tax rate that's found on the individual tax returns. So when you cut these income taxes at the top bracket, what they're talking about, $250,000, that is also targeting all the small
You're
businesses.
cutting the
in this
bankers.
country.
You're cutting the bankers.
unemployment.
You're not
taxes,
cutting.
but
You're not cutting the bankers. Okay, that's not what
you're giving
that's
them
not what
higher
we're concerned
taxes.
here. We're interested in the subchapter S. We're interested in the small taxes, and I'll go you one step further. I think we need to extend the reduce the corporate tax rate, which is into 30%. Ireland is at 13, and they lead the world in the expansion of larger businesses.
We've got to leave
Bechtel
it
is
there.
a chapter S company, and that's not a
I
small
think we need to
business.
hit both small business and larger
The problem is
business.
the
have to
bankers.
leave
The
it there,
bankers
my
are not
friends.
giving out money to small
We
businesses.
And they're
appreciate
supervised
you.
by Brittany Frank.
And thanks so much for joining us on Southeast Texas Weekly as we have another spirited debate. Two great gentlemen joining us. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with another show of equal interest, we believe. Have a great time.